Have you ever paused to think about the cost of anger, not just the cost to others, but to you? How many relationships, opportunities, or moments of peace have been stolen by that one emotion? Anger is often seen as a justified reaction, but what if I told you it's a thief, quietly robbing you of your best self? What if you could stop it, right now, forever? Let me ask you, how different would your life look if you could master your emotions instead of letting them master you? Anger is one of the most misunderstood emotions, often dismissed as a flaw or embraced as a necessary expression of strength. To understand its nature, we must first delve into its roots and purpose. At its core, anger is a natural response to perceived injustice, frustration, or a violation of expectations. It arises when there is a gap between what we believe should happen and what actually occurs. For example, when someone speaks harshly to us, anger may flare as a defense mechanism to protect our dignity or self-worth. But this instinct, while rooted in human survival, can easily spiral into something destructive if left unchecked. Biologically, anger is a response triggered by the amygdala, the part of the brain responsible for processing emotions. When you perceive a threat, physical, emotional, or social, the amygdala sends a signal that initiates the fight or flight response. This mechanism was crucial for early humans who faced immediate dangers like predators or hostile tribes. In those moments, anger provided the energy and focus needed to confront the danger or escape it. However, in the modern world, where threats are rarely life-threatening, this primal reaction often leads to overreactions. The workplace disagreement or the rude stranger at the store doesn't require the same level of emotional intensity, yet our brains still respond as if the stakes were life and death. Philosophically, anger has been a subject of debate for centuries. Ancient Stoic thinkers like Seneca viewed anger as a temporary madness, a loss of rational control that harms both the person experiencing it and those around them. In his essay on anger, Seneca describes the emotion as a fire that starts small but quickly consumes everything if not contained. To the Stoics, anger was not just dangerous but also illogical. They believed that human beings should strive for rationality and self-control, recognizing that anger clouds judgment and impairs decision-making. Marcus Aurelius, another prominent Stoic, famously wrote in his Meditations, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This idea underscores the importance of mastering one's internal responses rather than being a victim of external circumstances. Culturally, anger is treated differently across societies. In some cultures, expressing anger is seen as a sign of weakness or lack of discipline, while in others, it is viewed as a valid way to assert oneself or demand justice. These cultural norms shape how we perceive and manage anger, but the underlying emotion remains universal. Regardless of cultural context, unchecked anger often leads to conflict, regret, and damage to relationships. In contrast, channeling anger constructively can drive positive change, such as addressing social injustices or motivating personal growth. Psychologically, anger often stems from unmet needs or unresolved pain. When people feel disrespected, ignored, or powerless, anger can emerge as a way to reclaim a sense of control. For instance, a person who feels undervalued at work might lash out at colleagues or harbor resentment, even if the real issue lies in a lack of communication or unmet career aspirations. Similarly, anger can be a mask for deeper emotions like fear, sadness, or insecurity. A parent who yells at their child for misbehaving may, in reality, be frightened about their ability to guide the child or worried about external judgment. Anger also thrives on patterns of thought. Cognitive distortions, such as black and white thinking or catastrophizing, fuel the fire of frustration. For example, if someone cuts you off in traffic, you might think, "That person is so selfish, they have no regard for others," rather than considering alternative explanations like a momentary lapse in attention. This automatic leap to negative conclusions amplifies anger, making it harder to let go. The way we interpret events significantly impacts whether anger flares up or dissipates. Recognizing this can be a powerful tool in managing the emotion. Another important aspect of anger is its contagious nature. Emotions are highly infectious, and anger is no exception. When one person in a group becomes angry, it can quickly spread, creating a charged atmosphere. This is particularly evident in social or political contexts, where collective anger can lead to protests or riots. While collective anger can be a force for change, such as in movements for civil rights or social justice, it can also lead to destructive outcomes if not guided by clear principles and rationality. On a personal level, anger's impact is profound. It affects the body by increasing heart rate, raising blood pressure, and releasing stress hormones like cortisol. Over time, chronic anger can contribute to serious health issues including heart disease, anxiety, and weakened immunity. Emotionally, anger creates a cycle of negativity that is difficult to break. It fosters resentment, alienates loved ones, and often leads to regret. Many people report feeling ashamed or guilty after an outburst, which can compound their emotional turmoil. Socially, anger isolates individuals. It creates barriers in relationships, making it harder to communicate effectively or build trust. When anger becomes a habitual response, people may begin to avoid the individual, perceiving them as volatile or difficult to deal with. This isolation can deepen feelings of frustration, creating a vicious cycle that perpetuates the problem. Despite its challenges, anger is not inherently bad. It is a signal that something in your environment or internal state needs attention. When harnessed correctly, anger can be a catalyst for growth and positive change. The key lies in understanding its nature and learning to respond rather than react. For example, instead of yelling at a partner during an argument, you might use the anger as a cue to address underlying issues in the relationship constructively. This shift from reaction to response is where real power lies. To transform anger into a constructive force, self-awareness is crucial. Begin by identifying the triggers that consistently provoke your anger. Is it a specific person, situation, or pattern of behavior? Once you recognize these triggers, you can prepare strategies to deal with them effectively. For instance, if you know that waiting in long lines irritates you, bring a book or practice mindfulness to stay calm. Additionally, cultivating empathy can diffuse anger. When you put yourself in another person's shoes, it becomes easier to see their perspective and understand their actions. This doesn't mean excusing bad behavior, but rather acknowledging that everyone is dealing with their own struggles and limitations. Empathy shifts the focus from blame to understanding, which can help resolve conflicts more peacefully. Lastly, practice gratitude as an antidote to anger. It may sound simplistic, but focusing on what you appreciate in life can reframe your mindset. When you're stuck in traffic, instead of fuming about the delay, think about how fortunate you are to have a car or the freedom to travel. Gratitude redirects your attention to the positives, making it harder for anger to take root. In conclusion, anger is a complex emotion with deep biological, psychological, and social roots. While it can be destructive, it also holds the potential for transformation and growth. By understanding its nature and learning to manage it constructively, you can turn anger from a source of pain into a tool for progress. Remember, it's not the presence of anger that defines us, but how we choose to respond to it. Understanding why we get angry requires a deep dive into the roots of human emotion and behavior. Anger is not a random feeling. It is a response to specific triggers that challenge our sense of security, fairness, or control. At its essence, anger arises when something disrupts our expectations about how the world should function. It is an emotional alarm, signaling that our internal balance has been disturbed. To understand and master this emotion, we must first explore its causes and underlying mechanics. One of the primary reasons we get angry is unmet expectations. Life is full of assumptions about how things should be. We expect people to act kindly, situations to unfold smoothly, and plans to proceed without interruption. When reality clashes with these expectations, frustration can quickly turn into anger. For instance, imagine planning a vacation for months, only for a flight delay to disrupt everything. The anger in this scenario stems not from the delay itself, but from the gap between what you anticipated and what actually occurred. Another significant factor is the need for control. Human beings thrive on the feeling of autonomy and influence over their environment. When we lose control, or perceive that control has been taken from us. Anger often surfaces. Consider a situation where someone cuts you off in traffic. The act itself might only delay you by a few seconds, but it's the perceived loss of control over your driving space that ignites frustration. This need for control is deeply ingrained as it relates to our primal instincts for survival and territory. Anger is also fueled by feelings of disrespect or devaluation. When someone dismisses your opinions, ignores your contributions, or treats you unfairly, it can trigger a strong emotional response. This reaction is tied to our sense of self-worth. We instinctively seek validation and recognition from others. When this need goes unmet, anger acts as a defense mechanism, attempting to restore our perceived value or assert our importance. Fear is another powerful catalyst for anger. Often anger masks deeper emotions, with fear being one of the most common. When we feel threatened, whether physically, emotionally, or socially, we may lash out in anger as a way to protect ourselves. For example, a parent might become angry with their child for wandering too close to a busy street. While the anger may seem directed at the child's behavior, it's rooted in the parent's fear for their child's safety. This interplay between fear and anger is complex, as the latter often provides a sense of control over the vulnerability caused by the former. Perceived injustice is another frequent trigger for anger. Humans have a deeply ingrained sense of fairness, likely tied to our social evolution. When someone violates this sense, whether by cutting in line, lying, or acting selfishly, it can provoke a strong emotional reaction. This is why anger often arises in situations of inequity or moral violation. We feel compelled to address the imbalance, whether by voicing our disapproval or seeking retribution. However, this drive for justice can backfire if it's not channeled constructively, leading to unnecessary conflict or escalation. Emotional baggage plays a significant role in why we get angry. Past experiences, especially unresolved ones, shape how we interpret present situations. If someone has been hurt or betrayed in the past, they might react more strongly to perceived slights or threats. For example, a person who has experienced repeated rejection may become disproportionately angry when they feel excluded, even in trivial circumstances. This connection between past pain and present anger highlights the importance of self-awareness in managing emotional responses. Another reason for anger lies in physical and mental states. Factors like stress, fatigue, hunger, or illness can lower our threshold for frustration, making us more prone to anger. When our resources are depleted, our ability to regulate emotions diminishes, and small irritations can feel overwhelming. This is why people often advise against making important or addressing conflicts when you're tired or stressed. Recognizing these vulnerabilities can help necessary anger and respond more calmly to challenges. Social and cultural influences also shape our anger. In some environments, expressing anger is seen as a sign of strength or authority, while in others, it's considered inappropriate or shameful. These cultural norms affect how we process and desire anger. For example, in competitive work environments, anger might be encouraged as a way to assert dominance. In contrast, family dynamics might discourage open displays of anger, leading to passive-aggressive behaviors instead. Understanding these social frameworks can provide into why we react the way we do in different settings. Another layer to consider is the role of cognitive additions in fueling anger. These are patterns of thinking that exaggerate or misinterpret reality, making situations seem worse than they are. For instance, personalizing an event, "They did that to hurt me," or catastrophizing this mistake will ruin everything, can escalate minor frustrations into full-blown anger. These distortions often occur automatically, but with price, they can be identified and corrected. Reframing situations to consider alternations is a powerful tool for diffusing anger. Biologically, anger is hardwired into our survival mechanisms. When we perceive a threat, our brain activates the or-flight response, releasing adrenaline and other stress hormones. This physical reaction prepares us to confront the threat or escape it. While this was crucial for survival in our evolutionary past, it's less helpful in modern situations where threats are often more symbolic than physical. For example, an argument with a colleague doesn't require the same adrenaline-fueled response as encountering a predator, yet our bodies react as if it does. This mismatch between our biology and modern changes is a key reason why anger can feel so overwhelming. Anger's contagious nature is another important to examine. Emotions are highly infectious, and anger is no exception. When one person in a group becomes angry, it can quickly spread, creating a charged atmosphere. This phenomenon is particularly evident in socio-political movements, where collective anger can galvanize action but also lead to destructive outcomes if not tempered by rationality. Understanding this dynamic can help us avoid being swept up in others' anger and remain grounded in our own responses. Finally, unmet emotional needs often lie at the heart of anger. When people feel ignored, misunderstood, or undervalued, anger can emerge as a way to draw attention to those needs. This is particularly common in close relationships, where unspoken expectations or unresolved tensions can lead to frequent conflict. For instance, a partner might become angry over a seemingly minor issue, such as a forgotten chore, when the real issue is feeling unappreciated or disconnected. Addressing these underlying needs can transform from a destructive force into an opportunity for growth and connection. In conclusion, anger is a complex emotion with deep roots in human biology and social dynamics. It arises from unmet expectations, perceived threats, and unresolved pain, but it is also influenced by cultural norms and individual experiences. While anger can be destructive, it also serves as a signal that something in our lives needs attention or change. By understanding why we get angry and addressing the underlying causes, we can transform this powerful emotion into a force for positive growth and greater self-awareness. How anger hurts you. Anger is a powerful emotion, and while it might seem justifiable or even necessary at times, its consequences can be far-reaching and deeply damaging. It impacts not only your mental and emotional health, but also your physical well-being, relationships, and overall quality of life. Understanding you is the first step toward managing it effectively and breaking free from its destructive cycle. One of the most immediate and noticeable effects is on your physical health. When you become angry, your body activates the fight or flight response. Your heart rate increases, your blood pressure spikes, and stress hormones like adrenaline and cortisol flood your system. This response, designed to prepare you for immediate action, is perfectly suited for life-threatening situations. However, in the modern world, where anger is often triggered by less triggered, these physiological changes can become harmful. Over time, the chronic anger can lead to serious health problems such as hypertension, heart disease, and weakened immune function. Studies have shown that people who frequently intense anger are at a higher risk of strokes and heart attacks. The repeated strain on the cardiovascular system by anger episodes takes a toll, leaving the body more vulnerable to long-term damage. Beyond physical health, anger also takes a toll on mental and emotional being. Constant anger can create a state of perpetual stress, which disrupts the balance of brain chemicals and leads to anxiety, depression, and even insomnia. Anger clouds your judgment, making it harder to think clearly or make rational decisions. When consumed by anger, you might find yourself saying or doing things that you later regret, which can lead to guilt and self-blame. This negative feedback loop reinforces feelings of frustration and helplessness, trapping you in a cycle of emotional turbulence. Anger's impact extends to your relationships as well. The way anger manifests, whether through yelling, sarcasm, or passive-aggressive behavior, can create significant rifts in personal and professional relationships. When anger is not expressed constructively, it often leads to misunderstandings, loss of trust. For example, if you frequently lash out at a partner during arguments, they may begin to feel unsafe or emotionally disconnected, weakening the bond you share. Over time, repeated instances of unresolved anger can erode the foundation of even the strongest relationships. In the workplace, outbursts or simmering resentment can create a hostile environment, reducing teamwork, productivity, and morale. Another way anger harms you is by isolating you socially. people tend to avoid those who are frequently angry, as they may feel uncomfortable or threatened in their presence. This isolation can be particularly damaging, as it deprives you of the social support and meaningful connections that are essential for mental and emotional resilience. The more anger isolates you, the more likely you are to feel lonely and misunderstood, which can further fuel your frustration and reinforce the cycle of negativity. Anger also has a way of distorting your perspective, making problems seem bigger than they are. When you're angry, your brain focuses on the source of your frustration, often exaggerating its importance or impact. This tunnel vision prevents you from seeing the bigger picture or considering alternative solutions. For instance, if a colleague criticizes your work, you might interpret it as a personal attack and react defensively, rather than viewing it as an opportunity for growth. This distorted thinking not only heightens your anger, but also limits your ability to resolve conflicts constructively. The financial consequences of anger are another often overlooked aspect. People who struggle with uncontrolled anger may make impulsive decisions that lead to financial strain. For instance, someone might quit a job in a fit of rage without having another position lined up, or they might damage property in an outburst, resulting in costly repairs. Legal issues can also arise from uncontrolled anger, such as fine suits or even jail time, depending on the severity of the actions taken in the heat of the moment. Spiritually, anger can disconnect you from a sense of inner peace and purpose. Many philosophies and religions emphasize the importance of maintaining calm and forgiveness, as anger is often seen as an obstacle to personal and spiritual growth. When you allow anger to dominate your thoughts and actions, it can pull you away from practices that nurture your soul, such as meditation, prayer, or acts of kindness. This disconnect can leave you feeling unfulfilled and disconnected from your higher self or spiritual beliefs. The impact of anger is not just individual but also societal. On a larger scale, unbridled anger can contribute to social discord, fueling conflicts, divisions, and even violence. In group settings, anger can spread like wildfire, intensifying disputes and making resolution more difficult. This is evident in everything from workplace disputes to political debates and even large-scale protests. While collective anger can sometimes drive positive change, it often leads to destructive outcomes when not channeled constructively. One of the most insidious ways anger hurts you is by limiting your potential. When anger becomes a habitual response, it consumes energy that could be better spent on growth and achievement. It's difficult to focus on personal development, creative pursuits, or meaningful goals when you're constantly battling frustration. Anger narrows your focus to the immediate source of irritation, leaving little room for introspection or forward thinking. Over time, this can stunt your progress and prevent you from reaching your full potential. Children and families are particularly vulnerable to the negative effects of anger. Growing up in an environment where anger is a dominant emotion can have long-lasting consequences for children, affecting their emotional development, self-esteem, and relationships in adulthood. Children who witness frequent outbursts or are on the receiving end of angry discipline may internalize these behaviors, perpetuating the cycle of uncontrolled anger in their own lives. Breaking this cycle requires conscious effort to model healthy emotional regulation and create a supportive, nurturing environment. It's also worth noting that anger doesn't just hurt you in the present, it leaves a lasting impact. The words spoken in anger are often remembered long after the emotion has subsided, causing deep and enduring wounds. Apologies can help mend the damage, but some scars take years to heal and others may never fully fade. Recognizing the long-term consequences of anger can serve as a powerful motivator to approach conflicts with greater care and consideration. Despite all the harm anger can cause, it's important to acknowledge that anger itself is not inherently bad. It is a natural emotion, and when channeled appropriately, it can even serve a positive purpose. For example, anger at social injustice can inspire movements for change, and frustration with a personal setback can motivate you to work harder. The key is to manage anger in a way that allows you to express it constructively rather than letting it control you. To mitigate the harmful effects of anger, self-awareness and emotional regulation are essential. Practicing techniques like mindfulness, deep breathing, and reflective journaling can help you recognize the early signs of anger and respond calmly. Seeking professional help, such as therapy or anger management classes, can also provide valuable tools for addressing underlying issues and learning healthier coping mechanisms. By taking these steps, you can transform anger from a destructive force into a tool for growth and empowerment. In summary, anger hurts you on multiple levels. Physically, emotionally, socially, and even spiritually. It damages your health, strains relationships, limits your potential, and leaves lasting scars. However, by understanding its impact and taking proactive steps to manage it, you can break free from its grip and lead a more peaceful, fulfilling life. The power to change lies within you. The Stoic approach to anger. The Stoic approach to anger is one of the most profound and effective methods for mastering this powerful emotion. Rooted in ancient philosophy, Stoicism provides practical wisdom that transcends centuries, offering timeless tools to navigate life's challenges with composure and clarity. At its heart, the Stoic perspective teaches us that anger is not an uncontrollable force, but a choice, a response rooted in our interpretation of events rather than the events themselves. By understanding and applying Stoic principles, we can transform anger from a destructive emotion into an opportunity for growth and self-mastery. To the Stoics, anger was considered a form of madness. Seneca, one of the most influential Stoic philosophers, referred to it as a temporary insanity, emphasizing that it clouds judgment and leads to irrational decisions. He argued that anger is not inherently powerful but gains its strength from our failure to control it. In his essay on anger, Seneca writes, "The greatest remedy for anger is delay." This simple yet profound advice underscores the importance of pausing before reacting, allowing reason to reclaim its place over impulsive emotion. Anger thrives on immediacy, but by introducing a deliberate pause, we can disrupt its momentum and regain control. Stoicism also advocates for the cultivation of virtues such as patience, humility, and forgiveness to counteract anger. Patience allows us to endure difficult situations without succumbing to frustration, while humility reminds us that we, too, are flawed and capable of error. Forgiveness, perhaps the most challenging, liberates us from the burden of resentment. When we forgive, we release ourselves from the chains of anger and reclaim our peace of mind. The Stoics understood that forgiveness is not about cunning bad behavior, but about freeing oneself from its emotional grip. Practicing mindfulness is another Stoic approach to anger. By staying present and observing our thoughts without judgment, we can become aware of the early signs of anger before it escalates. The Stoics encourage daily reflection as a way to develop mindfulness and maintain emotional balance. At the end of each day, Marcus Aurelius would reflect on his actions, asking himself if he had lived in accordance with his principles and if he had responded to challenges with wisdom and virtue. This practice not only reinforces self-awareness, but helps identify patterns of anger and opportunities for improvement. The Stoics also valued the power of rational self-talk in managing anger. When faced with a provoking situation, they advised countering impulsive thoughts with reason. For example, if you feel angry because a friend cancelled plans, you might remind yourself, "This is not a personal attack. People have their reasons, and this gives me an opportunity to enjoy focus on another activity." By challenging irrational or exaggerated thoughts, you can neutralize anger before it takes hold. Stoicism recognizes that anger, like all emotions, is a natural part of the human experience. The goal is not to suppress or deny anger, but to understand and manage it. This distinction is crucial because unacknowledged anger can manifest in unhealthy ways, such as passive aggressiveness or chronic head. The Stoics encourage us to face anger head-on, using it as a signal to examine our values, expectations, and priorities. By doing so, we can root causes of our frustration and cultivate a more harmonious inner state. One of the most empowering aspects of the Stoic approach is its emphasis on agency. Anger often makes us feel powerless, as though we are at the mercy of external forces. restores this sense of agency by reminding us that we always have a choice in how we respond. As Epictetus wrote, "No one can harm you unless you let them." This mindset shifts the focus from external circumstances to internal resilience, empowering us to navigate life's challenges with grace and equanimity. In conclusion, the Stoic approach to anger offers a roadmap to modal mastery that is as relevant today as it was in ancient times. By understanding the nature of anger, practicing reframing, cultivating virtues, self-improvement, we can transform this destructive emotion into a source of strength and wisdom. The teachings of Seneca, Epictetus, and Marcus Aurelius remind us that we have the power to rise above our impulses and live with integrity and peace. In the words of Marcus Aurelius, the best revolt to be like your enemy. By embracing the Stoic path, we can break free from the grip of anger and build a life defined by reason, compassion, and self-mastery.